Hey guys, it's Kevin, another Mirror for Guys. Now this is my review, and this is a movie that I definitely was very much looking forward to. It was one of my most anticipated movies for the rest of the year, honestly. And it was a movie that I just really was hoping was going to be something great. And let me just get into it. That movie is none other than the highly anticipated prequel to the Harry Potter series, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I was definitely really looking forward to this movie, mainly because of two. One, because I am a huge fan of the Harry Potter series. I think that is one of the best book-to-movie series ever made, telling a great story of adolescence and just everything about those movies I really do love. I think they're really just great movies overall, and I was looking forward to seeing what exactly they were going to do with this, but also because, I was excited to get back in this world again, but also because of the fact that I was just really interested in seeing where they were going to go with this. I mean, this is not the book series that Harry Potter is. It doesn't have the amount of loyal fans it does, so I really was interested in seeing, since they had creative liberty, what they really were going to do with this movie. I really didn't know how it was going to be. I was hoping it would be something great, and let me just say right now, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is something great. I really enjoy this movie overall. I think this perfectly sets up the franchise. That is something very different than Harry Potter. I'm going to say that right now. Don't go into this thing that's Harry Potter 2.0 because it's something different entirely, but it very well sets up a franchise that I'm honestly very interested in getting into and something that I very much enjoyed. But let's get to the plot of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, because I very much did love the plot to this movie. I think the plot of this movie was very interesting. Now, the movie actually takes place in 1926, because like I said, it's a prequel series, and we follow our main character, Newt Scamander. He is a very introverted wizard from Hogwarts. He is from Hogwarts, and he's arrived in New York, and he carries around this mysterious suitcase. We don't really know what that's all about, but in that suitcase, it's home to dozens of magical creatures. We don't really know what happens, but when arriving in New York, he ends up encountering several different people, and all the creatures end up escaping his suitcase, and he basically has to go find all these creatures and track them down and basically get them back into his suitcase, and that basically is the best way to describe Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them overall. I know it's not the most interesting description. Trust me, there's a lot more to this movie than that, but in a nutshell, that basically is the plot to this movie. I thought there was a pretty interesting plot to the movie, but let's get into this movie overall, starting off with the cast. So, one of the things I think we all will agree that made Harry Potter so great is that cast. I think all those roles were very well casted. Daniel Radcliffe, that was his breakout role as Harry Potter. He would not be the star he is today if it wasn't for him being Harry Potter. Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, just so many great actors and actresses in that movie, and this movie seemed no different. It seemed like it had a really great cast, and that's absolutely the case. I think the cast is one of the best things about this movie. Let's first talk about Eddie Redmayne in this movie, who I think was perfectly casted as this character of Newt Scamander. I think he had a big job to do here because Eddie Redmayne is a very well-known actor, and unlike Daniel Radcliffe, everyone knows who Eddie Redmayne is. I mean, everyone's heard the name Eddie Redmayne before. This is not like Daniel Radcliffe where he was an unknown star. So I think it was interesting the way they got Eddie Redmayne, because I was worried that, it was going to be Eddie Redmayne trying to be this character, but that's not the case at all. He perfectly transformed in this character of Newt Scamander. This is a very quiet, eccentric, introverted wizard who just likes to hang around this briefcase a lot. He doesn't talk to a lot of people unless he has to, and there are a lot of secrets that he holds, and I found his character to be very, very interesting. I thought he was just really interesting to learn about, but also in general, he's just having so much fun in this role. You can tell that Eddie Redmayne really is having the time of his life in this role. He's really putting so much in this role, and he really did a great job with it. He was a lot of fun, too. I really like getting this character, Newt Scamander. There's a lot of interesting things introduced in this movie that I'm definitely interested in getting into with this character. He very well carries this film. He's very charismatic, as Eddie Redmayne, as we've come to notice, that he is very charismatic in this role, and I think it's one of his best performances. I really think he did a great job in this role. I can't wait to see what he does in future installments, and that alone is enough for reason to see this movie, is for Eddie Redmayne. He really is great here. But the rest of the cast, I think, is just as capable. I think everyone else really did give a really good performance. For example, Katherine Waterson as Porpatina or Tina Goldstein. I really did like her character overall. And the way that she actually is a witch, she's not a wizard, she's actually a witch, I thought was very interesting. We found this out. And there's a lot of interesting stuff going on with her character, and the way that American wizardry is different than British wizardry. I thought was something that was very compelling. I like the way that things are very different there. You can tell she probably is going to be a love interest in the future for Newt, and I think they set that up pretty well. I really did like your character overall. You can tell she as well was having a lot of fun in this movie. I thought she really was great. But maybe the standout in this entire movie out of everyone, I think really the best performance, because Eddie Redmayne really was great. Dan Fogler, though, he was so funny in this movie. I really loved his character of Jacob Kowalski, because he is kind of the everyman in this movie. You know, he's this guy in New York who runs a bakery. Well, he wants to run a bakery. He works at this factory. He's a factory worker, and he kind of wants to run a bakery, and he comes to the New York, where he ends up encountering Newt, and the way that he gets himself exposed to all this magic and his responses. I mean, he's the Muggle. He's the one character in this movie that isn't a wizard, and it's cool to have a Muggle as a main character, something that the Harry Potter series never really had. So I like that he's a Muggle. I like the difference with him in this movie, and he definitely had a lot of fun. I really did like him and Eddie Redmayne's chemistry, especially. I think they had some really great scenes here. They worked very well, and I think he definitely was really great. I really love what he had to do here, and just a lot of fun to watch. Really loved his character overall. Definitely was one of the best parts of this movie. But you're also really rooting for his character. You can tell he is aspiring Jew. You can tell he's come to New York for a specific reason, and I really love what he had to do here. He was just a lot of fun to watch, and overall, I really enjoyed Dan Fogler in this movie. He really was great. Now, Alison Sudol, I thought was really good as a character of Queenie, who is Tina's sister. I thought she overall was really good. To me, though, she was really only in this movie for one reason, and that is to be a love interest for Kowalski's character, which I was a little bit let down by. I mean, she is, in fact, a witch in this movie. I think they could have done a little bit more with her. Well, actually, she's not. She is, in fact, involved in magic. We didn't really explain what she is. But other than that, they really don't get into her character that much. But I was okay with that, because she'll be in other installments, I'm sure. There's still stuff to establish with her character. And in many of the beginning Harry Potter films, characters are only there for one reason. And I think this is the perfect example with her character. She was good. I didn't think that Queenie was a bad character by any means, but I just felt she could have a little bit more to do, and I'm hoping that in the next movie she has more to do, because in this one she was I think, just there to be a love interest, which we didn't necessarily need, but she was good. I thought she was okay I thought she was good for what she did, and I did really like her overall. Very good actress, and I didn't think that she was bad. I just feel like she could have had definitely a lot more to do, but well, I'm sure she'll get more to do in the other movies. Colin Farrell, though, as our villain here, Percival Graves, is not nearly in the movie as much as you think he is, and I was okay with that. At first, I thought it was an issue. I was kind of upset. I'm like, okay, why aren't they doing anything with him? Because let me just tell you, he has about maybe 10 minutes of dialogue, and the rest of the scenes with him are completely silent, which I thought was kind of cool the way they did that. They don't really get into exactly what he's trying to do and, you know, what exactly his motive is. It's just his motive to me isn't exactly unclear. I think Colin Farrell did a good job what he had, but they just could have done maybe a little bit more with establishing his character. But because of something that happens to him at the end of this movie, then I'm like, okay, now I'm okay with them not developing his character as much. And I'll get into that when we get to spoilers. But I thought overall he was really good. I like what he had to do here. He definitely, you could tell, was having a lot of fun as well in this role. He definitely was really good. And it was cool to see Colin Farrell as a villain. I don't really think we've seen that before, but he was definitely really good here. Carmen Ejogo did a really good job as the president of Makuza, you know, the president of the director of Magical. I thought she overall was really great here. You can tell she's very strict, and she has a lot of Professor McGonagall in her, like a young Professor McGonagall, and I really like seeing that with her. She was definitely a lot of fun to watch. I really liked her character overall. I thought overall she really did do a really good job. And Ezra Miller in this movie, again, I thought he also was very severely underused. They could have done a lot more with him, but they really did not do that much with him, unfortunately. They could have done just a lot more, and he didn't really have a ton to do. But he was good for what he was in. I just felt they could have done a lot more with him. As well as Mary Lou Barebones, Samantha Morton's character, really had almost nothing to do in this movie. She's in the movie, but I thought overall she was very underused. But overall, I thought the cast here was definitely really good. You could tell they all were having a really good time in their parts, and I think that alone is enough a reason to see this movie. So the cast is really good, but now let's get to the directing and the screenplay, because that is the thing I was most worried about, is that this is you know, David Yates is directing every single one of these movies, and that has to be a good thing, because obviously he's directing every single one of them, and he really did do a great job directing these films. He actually is the one that directed the final 4 Harry Potter films, so he really does know his shit when it comes to the series, and you definitely do see that here. The tone of this movie, though, is very different than Harry Potter. It's a lot sillier, it's a lot more fun, and overall, well, not a lot more fun. I'm saying it's just, it's a lot sillier, definitely. It's a much different type of film. It's not as action-packed. Don't expect as much action to be going on in this movie. But it isn't exposition-heavy either, and I thought that was interesting. They expect you in this movie to know a lot of knowledge. They expect that you at least know stuff about Harry Potter. You know, that you know what a muggle is, that you know what certain characters are, and that's something I thought was really cool they did in this movie. You don't have to see every single Harry Potter movie, but as long as you know the key things about Harry Potter, I think you're good for this movie, and I think they did that pretty well here. The directing by David Yates, I thought overall was really good. His tone definitely was very well executed, and the movie was a lot of fun. It's probably one of the most fun times I had watching any movie this year. I definitely had a blast watching it, and it was also very funny. The funny moments really did work very well. I don't really think there were any times that it was awkward, and I thought the funny moments for the most part, really, most of them really did land. I very much got into it, and I thought the tone was very well done. But the writing here by J.K. Rowling, that was something that was most interesting, because this is J.K. Rowling's first feature-length film that she's writing. This isn't something that she wrote a book on. She did write the book, but she's actually writing this movie, and she did a really good job with the writing here. I really did get into the story. Thought the story overall was very interesting. This definitely, like I said, is more of a fun film, and you can definitely tell this is the first film in the franchise. There's a lot of stuff to establish. There is some exposition to be had, and I thought they did an okay job with that. I didn't think that it annoyed me too much. I didn't think there was, like, too much exposition or anything, but you can definitely tell this as a first movie, and what I mean by that is that there's a lot of stuff to establish, there's a lot of stuff to get into, and in general, there is still a lot that the cast is still gelling, you can definitely tell, and I think the writing is still gelling too. I think the writing overall was very interesting. I really did like a lot of the writing in this movie, and I thought, like I said, I had a lot of fun with it, because the movie really does get into a lot when it comes to the magic in America and the way that's different there than it is in Britain, which I thought was very interesting, because it's a lot stricter in America, we see. You know, there's not just this one school. I mean, there's a whole town in New York, which I thought was very interesting to find out, you know, what we did with that. I thought that was very cool. And the way that we got into America, and it was just a very different change of pace, and I thought overall that was very good. And you definitely do feel like it's 1920s throughout the entire movie. They did a really good job with that. I really enjoyed it overall. My only complaint with the screenplay is I feel like towards the end of the movie, they didn't really know where to go with it. I think there were a couple things that they did throughout the end of the movie that I think either were too convenient or just weren't really needed, and I feel like they're going to be fixed very, very quickly in the next movie. I don't think they were bad. I just felt they could have done a lot more of the screenplay, and the first hour of this movie I thought was really well done. I really did like it. I just felt like this movie in general, we didn't really get into the characters that much, but again, like I said, this is a first movie. We don't know everything we need to know. These characters are still being established. We're going to have them for 4 more movies, and you very much see that here. They get into these characters, they make them likable, but we just don't know a ton about a lot of them yet, and that's stuff we're still going to have to find out when we come to the next 4 movies, which I'm definitely looking forward to seeing. I think they did a really good job with setting up this franchise. The cinematography in this movie is some of the best I've seen all year. It is absolutely gorgeous to look at. I mean, just New York in general looks fantastic. It looks like the 1920s. I felt like I was in the 1920s. I definitely felt that time period was prevalent throughout the whole movie. But also, the design of the creatures look great. They really do all look great. They very well separate them, and they're very, very distinctly different from stuff you see in Harry Potter. A lot of people compare them to Pokemon, and I honestly would feel that is a just comparison. I think definitely they have a lot of similarities to that. As for someone who's not really a huge Pokemon fan, for me to say that is pretty big, but definitely, yeah, it does feel like Pokemon at points. I thought that was a lot of fun to watch, and I thought cinematography in general, there were some really cool action scenes in here. There's not like a ton, but there was one climax. The climax of the movie I thought was pretty thrilling the way it was done. I really did enjoy it overall, and I really did like the cinematography of this movie. I thought overall was just really nice to look at, and I really did enjoy that. And the score by James Newton Howard, we do have some of the original score, you know, the da 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 da. That is back in this movie, and the second that I heard that, I was just in it, and they did that so well. But they have this new really fun upbeat score as well that Harry Potter didn't really have, and I thought that was cool. That perfectly separates itself from Harry Potter, and that's something else I really will give this movie, that for the most part, it is its own thing, and I really did appreciate the fact that this movie is its own thing. There's a lot that you can do with with that, and there's so many places they can go with the story that I'm just really interested in seeing really what they're going to do with that, and that's something I was definitely very impressed by. The editing in this movie was a bit choppy at points. I will admit that I did feel the length towards the end of this movie, but I was into it the whole time. It wasn't really a scene that I wasn't into. I thought everything was really interesting, and for the most part, I really did love pretty much everything going on, except for the few things that I did want to talk about. But now, briefly, I do want to get into the spoilers. There isn't a ton to say when it comes to spoilers in this movie, but I do want to talk about a few things that I thought were interesting to see. So if you guys don't want to know what happens at the end of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, do not watch the rest of this review. I'm going to talk about a few key spoilers. Again, this isn't a movie that's heavy on spoilers, but there definitely is stuff that happens that I definitely do want to talk about. So let's just get into it. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is everything going on with that picture that Newt has. The picture we find out, we don't know who it is, but throughout the movie we're trying to figure out who it is, and we find out that that is none other than Lita Lestrange. And if you guys know the last name Lestrange, Lita Lestrange is actually the godmother of Bellatrix Lestrange. And I don't know if we're going to be introduced to her character, but just knowing that they did that, I thought was a very subtle connection the way they do that. There's so many things they can do with that, and that was something that I absolutely love, the way they just had that really small connection in there. I really did like. I know they're getting Dumbledore in the next movie, and that's something I definitely was very interested in. But let's get to that twist, because we find out in this movie, after Graves is, condemned and everything, and he's about to go to jail, we find out that he actually is Gellert Grindelwald, a dark wizard who's one of the most dangerous wizards of all time. We've definitely heard of this character before, and I thought it was really cool the way they got him in this movie, and the fact that we found out that he was Grindelwald, I'm like, okay, now I understand why they didn't really establish him, because he was pretending to be someone else. He actually is Grindelwald. Johnny Depp is playing him, which is very interesting. It already seems like he very much is into the role, but I am so looking forward to seeing what he ends up doing in the next movie. I definitely am into his character so far, so I'm in it. I'm definitely looking forward to that overall. My biggest complaint with this movie is the ending, what ended up happening with Kowalski. I understood why they had to wipe his memory. I get that he was the everyman. I get that they didn't want him to have any knowledge about what was going on with the humans, because they didn't want him to expose them as magic and everything. They didn't want him to tell any other muggles what was going on. I understand that, but him getting his memory wiped, I found to be very, very convenient, and really was just there to add some sort of way to keep him into the story, and that he was going to come back. I like the way that he did that. I think it did make up when Newt ended up sending him all those baked goods. I thought that was pretty funny. But at the end of the movie, when he saw Queenie again, I thought the relation was actually very rushed in this movie, and they really did not take the time to develop that. So I'm glad that he did remember her, but why does he remember her and no one else? That didn't really make a ton of sense to me. But, well, I very much think he's going to get his memory back by the end of the next movie. I think that very much is going to happen, but I really was not a huge fan of that. I thought it was kind of dumb the way it was done. But I did really like that the movie ends with Newt deciding to write Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, us seeing him leaving, because it's very reminiscent of Harry Potter overall. I wish the movie ended there. I don't really think we needed that last scene with Kowalski and Queenie, because I feel like they were trying to do a parallel of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And if you remember, the first 3 Harry Potter movies end with him leaving, and that very much felt like what they were trying to do here. They were trying to parallel that, and it worked, but they didn't end the movie that way. And I don't know why they didn't just end it there. They could have easily ended there. But either way, guys, I definitely looking forward to getting more into this series. I really did love the way this movie turned out overall, and just based on a few things in those, us learning about, having the knowledge that Percival Graves is actually, Gellert Grindelwald, and who he is and the connection he has to Dumbledore, knowing that Dumbledore is going to be in the next movie, the knowledge that, Lita Lestrange is out there, just all that little stuff. I think it's going to be very interesting to see. There's a lot they can do with that, and I can't wait to see what else they end up doing in this series overall that I am already very much looking forward to seeing the rest of. So overall, guys, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is a very fun movie that I really did have a lot of fun with. Just don't go into a thing it's going to be Harry Potter 2.0, because it's really not at all. It really is its own thing, and that's something that I very much did appreciate. It's not a perfect movie. It very much is like the first Harry Potter film, where it's setting up a lot of things. You definitely do get that sense in this movie, but had some really great ideas that I really did enjoy, and found a way to really be something distinctly different, and I'm looking forward to seeing really where the rest of the series is going to go, and I am going to give Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them a 4 out of 5 or a B+. But over, guys, my Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Know what you guys thought of this movie overall. What did you think of it? Did you like the twist in this movie? Did you like the way they set it up for a sequel? Where do you think we're going to go from here? I mean, there really are so many places they can go. This is one of those series where I really think they could just go to any time period. We'd have a huge time jump and they could still keep the same story around. As long as you have most of the same story elements, I think you can do a lot with this. But that's my review. Hope you all enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for, I think, a movie review. I'm not entirely sure, but I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.